Brexit, Betrayal, Divergence and Dishonesty. We're going to read into this analysis, or not so much an article, from Byline Times. Let's go, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an analysis, shall we say, from Byline Times of Brexit, Betrayal, Divergence and Dishonesty. Yeah, I know I got the first word wrong in Divergence. Despite Keir Starmer's mixed comments on our future relationship with the EU, Labour's Brexit homage seems to be over, writes Shamik. So this is more of an analysis, or more of an opinion piece, shall we say, from Shamik. But let's have a read into it, guys. So, can we be brave about the decisions we make, even if there is a political cost? Can we be honest when the facts change, even if it's awkward? Can we put the long-term interests of our country before the short-term political needs of the moment, even if it means being controversial? So I asked Rishi Sunak if his net zero speech, in which he seems to answer his rhetorical questions no, no and no, yet we seem no closer to him or any leading politician starting a speech on the UK's future relationship with Europe in the same vein, as recent Brexit headlines have once more demonstrated. They have centred on Labour's leader Keir Starmer's comments about not wanting to diverge from EU rules at a summit of global progress at Montreal, in which he also talked about putting Britain back on the world stage and showing global leadership. Those interventions sandwiched the meetings in The Hague and Paris, where he sought to drum home his message with key European leaders, also opening up the possibility of deals on tackling cross-border crime and migration. Those response of the Conservatives and press, not bravery, honesty or long-term thinking, but cries of betrayal, buttressing imaginative stories about what Labour would do. So right there off the bat, this could not be more true. Yeah, when Keir Starmer talked about we don't want to diverge from EU rules, everyone throws their toys out the pram saying, it's a betrayal of Brexit. He never said that, and he knows he cannot outright say that anyway, because if he does, everyone's just going to tear the goddamn hair off. Like, why are people so afraid to talk about one of the biggest issues that is taking place in our country? They are just so, the right wing and the Conservatives, just so eager to keep having this rhetoric. Like Nick Ferrari in LBC had a caller in about it saying we need to move on. Like, he don't have a goddamn clue what's going on in this country, that guy. He really does not. Like, it is absurd to keep saying to people to move on from it when people are suffering. People have died as a result of Brexit. Yeah, people have actually died as a result of Brexit. Families have been destroyed as a result of Brexit. Businesses are worse off because of Brexit. And you can point to coronavirus, you can point to climate, you can point to the war in Ukraine, you can point to all these things. But Brexit has made these things worse for us. And the numbers and the facts and the statistics do not lie about the damage that Brexit has caused to this country, to all four nations of the United Kingdom. And no wonder Scotland more than ever are screaming for independence, and rightly so. They're worse off. Northern Ireland, what happened over there what's happened over there in Northern Ireland, is an absolute travesty as well. Wales are sitting behind England, suffering just as much as England is as well. And could we not be more obvious? And yet for some reason the mainstream media and politicians don't want to talk about the big fat white elephant in the room that has been sitting there for God knows how long. And they just don't want to talk about it. And it's like, you can ignore it all you want. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to leave the room. It's going to still be there. And unless you deal with that big fat white elephant in the room, he's going to be there and he's going to keep making noises. No matter how much you try to ignore the big fat white elephant in the room. But this whole thing about the moment that Keir Starmer talked about wanting to have not to diverge from the EU, from their standards. Like, he didn't even say that he's going to rejoin. But it makes logical sense to have the closer alignment with EU. It makes logical sense. Why do we want our businesses to suffer more? For what? Sovereignty? Like, ridiculous. Absolute ridiculous nonsense. Off the back of such criticism and under pressure, Starmer seems forced to revert to his case of there is no case of going back into the EU, and that includes the single market and customs union formula. This despite the polls, pay attention here, showing a consistent and growing majority in favour of rejoining the EU, with the public saying that the country is worse off after Brexit and regretted the decision, calling for a new referendum even in the Red Bull, and with thousands of people taking to the streets of the capital in the National Rejoin March on Saturday. By the way, yeah, there were reports that there was a huge turnout of the National Rejoin March. Now, I didn't participate. I did go down there on Saturday. I didn't participate directly, but I could see the crowd when they were gathering outside the Hilton Hotel, and it was absolutely humongous. It was a humongous crowd there, and they were all over social media as well. And what was quite infuriating is that such a massive issue of a big fat white elephant that in the room that we are not dealing with, and yet the mainstream media refuse to acknowledge the National Rejoin March. They refuse to acknowledge it, despite the fact that it was the biggest and most important topic that people were talking about on that Saturday. You heard nothing from the likes of Sky News, Channel 4, the BBC. They refused to outright mention it. In complete denial of what the British public are feeling right now. It's pathetic, and when you hear them on like Question Times or whatever, when these people come up and they mention it, like, you won't hear it replayed on the likes of BBC or Sky News or whatever. You'll hear it played online on like X or other social media or Facebook or whatever, but they won't play it because they don't want people to talk about it. They don't want people bringing that up again. No. We can't talk about the big fat white elephant in the room. So we're back to square one, and the patterns repeat has done each time Starmer speaks. And will speak on the issue on the side of the general election. Even the Liberal Democrats seem to have jumped on the Brexit appeasing bandwagon, with its leader Ed Davey choosing the eve of the party's annual conference to say rejoining is off the table. He's focusing on the cost of living and stuff, said David. For a party that was so pro-EU, they've gone completely radio silent on it. They're more radio silent than both the Conservatives and Lib Dem, to be fair. But a closer look at what Starmer says does not say is more intrusive. In the same clip, which is reiterated the rejoin anything line, when pressed on how he would diverge, he couldn't say, choosing instead to stress that there will be no weakening of workers' rights, environmental protections and food and product standards. Ditto in his Channel 4 News interview later in the day. It's the same time he asked to articulate anything remotely positive about Brexit. He just can't do it. Can't come up with any concrete examples because there aren't any, and he's not deluded. This is the problem, guys. There's no benefits of being outside the EU. We still, to this day, don't have a conclusive benefit to it. But the problem is that there are people who, not so much. The problem is that people are so screwed up. I believe in this ideology, this almost occult religious kind of thing about Brexit, that no matter what anybody says outside of their bubble, no matter what we say, they will not believe us. No matter how much facts or truth that is thrown at them, they will not believe it. This perception of they are always in the right, that what they believe is true, and nothing outside of our bubble of influence of people matters. Like people like us on the left side, lefties or centre, whatever you want to call us, our opinions are invalid to them. Likewise, a look at the public's comments on some of his shadow cabinet ministers shows Labour's Brexit en marche is well and truly over. In the past fortnight alone, new shadow Culture Secretary Therese Debonel attacked the impact of Brexit on the creative sector, especially musicians, calling for a visa waiver for tourist artists. New Shadow Environment Secretary Steve Rees said the Brexit had clobbered farmers with its excessive red tape at the borders, saying Labour would negotiate a veterinary agreement with the EU to make it easier for British farmers to export to our neighbours. Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper said we need a new security agreement with the EU to share intelligence and increase working with its law enforcement agency, Europol. And Shadow Defence Secretary John Henley said Labour would rebuild our relationship with European allies and pursue new security pacts with our European partners. Most forthright of all, however, has been the Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy, who last week said that Brexit had left the UK isolated and missing, adding that there have always been two visions of Britain: Great Britain, outward-looking, internationalist and connected, and Little England, which is unfortunately what is being pursued by Rishi Sunak. Yeah. Lammy said that closer links with the EU would be Labour's priority, that it was bizarre that the UK does not currently under this government have a structured dialogue with the European Union in a constructive way. That is the other thing as well with this current government in particular. They're not prepared to have any mediotic, realistic, proper discussions with the EU, and it's absolutely pathetic just to keep this rhetoric of line about everything was all the EU's fault. It's a pathetic thing from this Conservative government, not in any way thinking about the well-being and the damage that the impact that Brexit has caused. He pledged that Labour would approach the 2025 review of the Brexit deal in a very constructive manner and hold regular UK-EU meetings, bemoaning Britain being isolated for not having a seat at the table, locked out of key decisions and discussions like the recent G20 summit in Delhi, where the EU, US and India established a new Middle East trade corridor. Yeah, and UK had no play in it, had no role in it, no sign in it, not even discussions in it. They were left out in the dark. Not so much just because of Brexit, but because of the attitude of the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party, where they've shown themselves to not be faithful. They've proven to not be trustworthy in any way, shape or form. You cannot trust them. You cannot take their words seriously. They've gone back on their words in key aspects of the deal with the EU that was signed between the two parties, between the European Union and the UK government. So you cannot trust them. And it's no surprise that they were pushed out of these discussions. Why would you want them in? Why would you want them in there if you can't even trust them? So it speaks massive volumes about the sway that Conservative Party have now and its leader. It really, really does. As for there was one other bit I was going to mention as well. Where is it? The 2025 review deal. Okay, so it is only a review. It's not a negotiation as well. This has been stressed. This needs to be stressed many, many times. This is not a renegotiation. It is a review, and it's very important to stress that point. People have been saying that we can create a new, renegotiate the deal and all that. No, it's a review of the current deal. And remember, the ball is in the EU's court on this as well. It's all down to the EU. They're the ones who hold the cards, not the United Kingdom on this. It is that the review of the UK-EU Trade and Cooperation Agreement (TCA) that looms larger over the horizon, just on the other side of the election. If the EU concludes that the UK has broken the terms of its deal, it could seek to punish the UK, making it harder for businesses to trade goods with the single market, eraking barriers and cutting access. Even before that, legal action may force the EU's hand, with the European Trade Union Confederation warning last week the TUC's Congress that the Labour government's new raft of anti-union legislation puts it in breach of the International Labour Organization, the ILO, conventions. As witnessed over the deadlock in resolving the Northern Ireland situation, the EU does not take kindly to unlawfulness, unpicking and undercutting. That's the other thing as well. They've been underfunding, undercutting, undermining everywhere they go, this Conservative Party. For all the rest of the reset, an incoming Labour government may find itself having to furiously and rapidly assure a very angry EU. If the TCA does not hold till then, stabilising relations and reassuring Brussels and leading governments will be vital. A soft continuation of the early Sunak gains from the Windsor framework earlier this year have sought to solve the Northern Ireland deadlock, And this month's deal to re-admit the UK to the Horizon Europe, the EU's £95 billion funding programme for scientific research, innovation and technological development, to the upcoming cooperation agreement with Frontex. The EU-UK Horizon project was a great step in the right direction. I will give the Conservative government that at least. £95 billion funding programme for scientific agreement with Frontex, the EU's border protection agency, seems most likely, followed by the emerging yet still modest wish list outdated above, and at no time diverging with further realignment and rejoining fully or in part various other EU programmes and initiatives, slowly then rapidly through the term. As David Lemmy had previously observed, that a new Labour government would go through the agreements page by page, seeking ways to remove barriers and improve opportunities for business. We can expect more on this in the next few weeks in the run-up to then at the Labour conference. As for the Conservatives in the upcoming gatherings, the Prime Minister ended his zero-net speech by saying, consent, not imposition, honesty, not obstruction, pragmatism, not ideology. We're going to make different decisions. We won't take the easy way out. There will be resistance and we will meet it. Again, we're unlikely to hear from him at the conclusion of a speech about Brexit anytime soon. It will be more disingenuous and dishonesty and betrayal. A real Brexit betrayal, that is. Very good piece by Shamik Das there. Very, very good there. Definitely check it out for yourself. I'll put a link in the description, guys. What did you guys make of that? It's interesting to say it's fascinating to say the least. Yeah, as I said on my little rant there, like, we don't want to talk about Brexit, and I don't often cover Brexit personally on my channel. I do cover it from time to time, as you guys know, but it's not really the vocal point of my channel. And what I will say is that although you know, I'm all for rejoining the European Union, I'm also realistic as well, is that we have to be patient. We have to be patient, and we are a long way out from it. And I generally am hoping that Keir Starmer is going to pull us closer to the EU. I really, really hope, for the sake of the United Kingdom, for the sake of all four nations. And there are some things that I'm optimistic about, and there's some things I'm pessimistic about with the Labour Party. And unfortunately, you know, you have to take them hand in hand. Unfortunately, it's not good that he went to a party with Rupert Murdoch. It's not good that he actually had an article with the Sun when he once vowed that he would never do an article for the Sun. It's not good that he has changed his tune from when he was working with Jeremy Corbyn to now. So it shows that he can change his tune in an instance. So what is he going to be like when he's actually in government? How different is he going to be, the Keir Starmer that he is now, to the Prime Minister he's going to be? That is a very interesting question that we should be asking ourselves, guys, because people can change when you get absolute power. So what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below about this written article by Shamik. I think it was very, very interesting. Your thoughts on Brexit? My comments. What do you guys think? Let me know. Eager to hear your thoughts, guys, on this. It's never easy talking about Brexit and the right ways of doing it. Like, share and subscribe as always. Thank you very much for watching. Also, don't be afraid to check out my exclusive content on Patreon as well. And hope to catch you all very, very soon.